Meeting of the town of Orangetown to order. Is everyone hearing me? Hello? Let me try this again. Can you hear me now? Matt, Anthony, is it okay? You're messing with me, Ronnie? You're lucky you're retiring. I'll be eating the microphone in a minute. All right, as I was saying, I hereby call this town board meeting of the town of Orangetown to order. Would the
Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Is the seat supposed to be forward-facing or rear-facing? Did they move to a booster seat too soon?
Cinderella found the pet that fits her perfectly. Tiana gave her pet the
challenge, but it's code change, not code challenge. So a quick update on Aloof. We had some changes and some good things and some things we're working on with that company. So we have put together an RFP for engineering services to evaluate a design for a fix to their system that they voluntarily complied with producing as we wait for the engineering firm. We were prepared to force them to. It would take longer. They've moved along with voluntarily complying on that. The RFP responses are due back by August 3rd, which is a couple weeks later than we hoped for, but we had to make sure it was written correctly. And the engineering firm we end up hiring will be able to start pretty much right away after that to evaluate whatever's presented. They have Aloof followed through in their promise to initiate a redesign of the odor control system, and they submitted their preliminary plan to the town so that we have something for an engineer to look at right away when they're hired. That shaved months of time and who knows how much money out of the process. On the immediate action front, they also submitted photographic proof that at the end of the month of May, they sealed 16 of the openings, the ventilation points in their roof from the production floor that had previously been allowing odor and things that were in the production floor to sort of float out into the air. That also saved us a lot of time in the process by them just complying. This all came as a result of us presenting the findings of the TRC Solutions report that identified there were nuisance levels of odors and explaining to them we're going to be able to enforce a lot stronger on use, so they decided to move along, which was a good move on their part, I think. We also saw an impact of that change. The number of air quality complaints, despite the warmer weather with everyone going outside, they dropped from 73 in April to 40 in May, and then to 9 in June and 15 in July, a major drop from April, which was a really bad month. On that July 15, 10 were from a single day in the evening. The DEC spoke to Aloof about that one and identified the likely cause as old filters, carbon filters. They changed them, and we haven't had that same volume of complaints since then. They changed them the following day. There are still occasional complaints, and obviously we want to get this so there's no nuisance levels. That's the point of the new redesign, and because of this progress, I'm cautiously optimistic that once the plan is submitted, we'll be able to proceed to actually getting it implemented once it's evaluated by our engineer. We also will be passing tonight our changes to the town code for odor, which will allow us to have a new set of tools if we ever run into this sort of situation again, and establish performance standards that are more modern in the 21st century with actual mathematical ways to measure odor as it affects our air quality. Finally, we also have officially identified, after a long, long search, a position was authorized, I think, 18 months ago or so, the public health engineer. The gentleman is going to be coming in at the end of the summer. We'll be appointing him in August, but he's accepted the position. He will be doing dual role of air quality and other environmental engineering, as well as code enforcement related to environmental issues. This is going to be a great asset for the town to have, both for air quality, but for other things as well. There's a solid waste program that's dealt with, a FATS program for restaurants that we don't really have an ability to really enforce right now. So he's going to be able to take on those things as well and really help make sure that the environment in Orangetown is strong. So that's where we stand right now with that company and the surrounding issues. And again, we're waiting basically on that RFP to be back and the responses for us to move forward to the evaluation of the system. Moving on to the public comment section, which, we need a motion for public comment? I always forget. To move to open public comment? No, I didn't think so. Yeah, the hearings we do. So the one change for today, as you see, we're in this room here. This is the new courtroom, new meaning younger than me, but not much. And though the folks on TV might see these spaceships landing above our heads because the air conditioning is out in the other half of the building, there's also no time clock. So I'm going to have a timer on my cell phone, which is, I know, kind of cheesy, but we'll all be okay. And I will wave on when you start, at 2 minutes, at 1 minute, and then I'll tell you when you're done. So just wave my hand, you'll be looking at me, and where you know where you stand in the process there. So we have 2 people signed in for public comment. Anyone else wants to comment after those 2 folks who signed in is more than welcome. So can I have Esther Baitler, please? You're up.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. Hi, my name is Esther Baitler, and I'm a consumer who lives at the Kathy Lucas Independent Living Center in Spark Hill. Tonight, I'm here to address the awful odors at Aloof Industries. I smell these odors on the bus on my way to work in the morning. Something has to be done because it is unreal. I really feel that the board really needs to get a handle on it. I'm also here to speak about a camp in Nyack, which is being forced to close. And I think it's awful. Camp Vermont is one of the best Jewish camps for kids. And to tell them they have to close to go look for other sites is truly not right. I went there when I was much younger. And then I went to the one in Parma, Massachusetts. But I really feel that this is not right. And I think that everybody here and the mayors should get a handle on it. I'm asking all of you on the board to make sure that this camp does not close. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you, Esther. Next is Mike Mandel, Pearl River. Whenever you're ready, Mike.
Okay. Yes, good evening, Supervisor Day and members of the Town Board. For the record, I'm Michael Mandel, a resident of Pearl River. The Pearl River Park and Activity Committee would like to commend the Orangetown Police Department, the Auxiliary Police, and the Highway Department, whose efforts on the evening of the 4th of July fireworks display provided a safe environment for the residents and the guests who attended. It was a perfect setting for the night. Secondly, my second comment, I'd like to preface it with the following. I do not play golf, nor do I ever expect to play golf in the future in my lifetime. I usually attend most regularly scheduled town board meetings as well as the workshops that are held on Tuesday night. Yet the first time I heard of the Senate Bill number S8345A referred to Committee on Local Government on May 2nd, 2018 by Senator Colucci, authorizing the town of Orangetown, County of Rockland, to discontinue use of certain lands as parklands, specifically Broadacres course, was in a letter to the editor published in our town and on CBS Radio the following morning. The bill, when one reads the senator's justification, One wonders why the board did not put the topic on the agenda for discussion. Some might agree, while others might disagree with the revision of Chapter 420 of 2013, authorizing the transfer of parcels of parkland and other parcels to parkland. My problem with it is there was no real transparency. I spoke with other residents of the town, none of whom had heard of the amendment until they also read it in the Orangetown and led it to the editor. This was not a discussion of an employee case or legal contract, which would have required to be conducted in executive session. In my opinion, town governance operates best when projects are open to public discussion and review, where costs and benefits of the project can be made known. The decision is still within the board's purview, but at least the residents would have expressed their opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. You had another minute if you're still not
Oh,
done.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
That was a 1-minute signal, not an end signal. Any other folks who did not sign in? We only had the 2 sign in for public comment. Just straight public comment on anything not for the public hearings that's come in later. Okay, great. Seeing no further comment, I move that we close public comment. Second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor? All right, just to address a couple of the points brought up, as the Camp Vermont is in Clarkstown, it's in Nyack, Upper Nyack, so it's in the town of Clarkstown. What the town of Clarkstown voted for, which we have no control over, is to deny them the ability to have dormitory use, which they didn't previously have. So they're still open, they're still operating. I appreciate what you're saying, but it's not us either way. It's Clarkstown, but they are open. They just can't have dormitories, which they never were allowed to have before. As to, I know they have, but they haven't been using dormitory use. It's a different thing. Overnight sleeping outside of camp sort of stuff is not something they've done. Mike, thank you for your commendation of our police department for the 4th of July. I think you guys do a great job. Unfortunately, fortunately, I was away for my brother's wedding that weekend, so I missed it for the first time in a long time, but I heard it went well. To the golf course, the letter that was submitted by the Clarkstown resident who wrote it was wildly inaccurate. It claimed that it authorized us to sell lands. The bill didn't authorize that. The bill was a minor textual amendment to a bill that had been passed in 2013. Everything else that everyone read about it, it's all just a quote from 2013. All the justifications, all the titles, all these other things. It changed a sentence and whether or not we'd have to pay into a fund to offset the value of land. It actually made it harder for us to do in a sense because we have to pay money out of a sale to it. This was done in the course of my discussions with our lobbyists. It wasn't a legislative decision by the town, it was a legislative decision by the state. And it just gives us the flexibility to pursue a thing that is under executive session, which is an ongoing possible land sale. We couldn't even move discussions past a point until we had flexibility. The town board and I all stand 100% committed. We will never even consider the sale of Broadacres unless all of the state land, the 70 acres, 75 acres that the state owns that are surplus land that could be sold at any time to any person for any purpose, or just developed directly by the state into anything. And you look at what happened at that solar field that just is getting put in Pearl River. They just clear-cut an intersection of Middletown Road and 304, started putting in solar panels, and didn't even tell us. They didn't have to legally tell us. And they could do that with 75 acres, including the Children's Psych Center. So that is the only circumstance where we would feel it would make any sense to consider Broadacres if that was needed to make a sale like that happen to a proper use to make sure that the town's preserved for our kids and their kids. The change was not what that letter said it was. It was a minor thing that I just basically talked to our lobbyists and said, if we don't get this changed, we can't even talk to these guys. So we changed it, and it came across the wrong way, and I understand that because the whole bill is published from 13 when you change the edits. But it's not a matter of lack of transparency. It's a matter of just such a minor thing that it was not even a thing of the town board even to address legislatively. It just was talking to a lobbyist to make sure it got done so we could move forward with something. But when we ever get to that point, if we ever get to that point, fully open process, that's how we operate. We're not going to hide anything we can't. It's going to be out in the open, and we'll make sure that people in Orangetown make their decisions. So do you guys have anything you want to add on to those?
No, just that in 2013, when the original bill was passed, it was open and public and workshopped and everything else. The change that was done, again, was a minor change. The town board, all of the town board members did agree to the change because it gave us a negotiating position if it became available. So the way it came across was like, it's a done deal, this is finished. That's
It's not how it-
reality. It just, we had to change those one sentence and a half or whatever it was to give us the ability, if the opportunity came with the right person, to protect all of the rest of the property. And it would have to be a home run for us to even consider it. Not just the sale. We're not just looking to dump property. We don't have to. We got rid of the worst part of the property, the contaminated buildings, and they're all being taken down. So at this point, it's really just about protecting the state property, which is our big concern. That's our main concern, is protect that.
All right, thank you. Jerry, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just look at it, Mike, as flexibility. That's pretty much it. There's nothing solid, nothing etched in stone. It's just, it gives us flexibility if something should arise.
Great. All right, thank you. So just because the next several things are public hearings, which I don't want to start early because there may be people expecting it to start at 8:05, we'll go ahead in the agenda once I get to it. It's this is all a lot of public hearing stuff. All right, this is directing circulation, H&A Palisades. Rob, 13, is that the first one that's not public hearing related? Am I correct here? I'm sorry, page 18, item 13. Seems like the rest is all from the public hearings. Can you just confirm that for me? The last thing I'm seeing is the PAC designation for the point.
Right, you can go with
We'll go straight to
13.
item 13 on the agenda, and then we'll come back to the first public hearing. So the first one is a motion to set a public hearing for H&A Palisades Premier Conference Center. They're looking to change their zone because they previously had been, the previous owner used it as a hotel when they weren't allowed to, and they want to change it to continue to use it as a hotel. Is there a motion to set the public hearing for September 4th at 8:05 p.m.?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari. Then we have to circulate all the declarations and intent to declare secret.
I just want to take a vote on that 13.
I do have to vote, though technically if you second then moved it and I'm in favor, I guess we're good with 3 people, but all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good, thanks, Rob. That's why we have an attorney here.
Again, this is just to set a public
Yeah,
hearing.
just for
so
the public
public
hearing.
can come out and discuss it.
Exactly. Then we have a motion to circulate our declaration of clear lead intent. Is there a motion on that? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, number 15, agreement to authorize SRO agreements. Is this ready? I didn't realize this was ready.
Yeah, I spoke with the school district attorney earlier this afternoon.
Okay.
And I did distribute a final version, but it's subject to approval. But Captain Butterworth and I went over the details, and we're in agreement with respect to providing an SRO to both districts and the circumstances and the reimbursement.
Great, okay, so what this is going to do is, and we're going to have a big announcement about it in the next couple days, is basically we are providing now full-time SROs, school resource officers, that will reside in each district. Each district is kicking in half the cost of a full-time officer hire to offset our additional hire, because we already have 1 school resource officer. And we're going to assign people, so we'll have someone in the kids' schools keeping an eye out on making sure no one's getting involved with drugs, making sure they're safe in the event of a school shooting, which the schools haven't had in Pearl River and in Tappan Zee for a very long time. So this is a very big thing that we were able to negotiate with the school districts, and I appreciate them being willing to contribute towards it, and we'll be willing to host our resource officers. So is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Number 16, resolution to authorize the use of land on Hunt Road for the Pearl River Fire District for some fire training. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Matari. All in favor?
Aye.
And number 17, resolution to authorize retainer of outside legal counsel for sale of cell tower space for on-town property. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 18, resolution to authorize New York State funding application, grant application. We're applying for a grant for infrastructure surrounding the RPC campus to help attract potential business investors. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Resolution to amend our agreement for server space at 1547 Critical Systems Data Center. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to appoint Rima Del Vecchio, Senior Account Clerk Typist, no change in salary. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry. Resolution to approve the certificates of sewer registration for 2018 from Town Attorney and DME. Is there a motion, Councilman Batari? Second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
resolution to appoint assistant building inspector, less than full-time position. So what I wanted to do on this, we didn't have the name in, and I want to see
I don't think we're making a position.
the
Is that what we're
position, so
doing
it was the position we talked about last week, where the position is open because we vacated it with the appointment of Rick to the deputy building inspector position.
now? Right.
And now we talked about possibly having a part-time or less than full-time person, and to deal with the volume of applicants to backfill him.
Right.
It's an added cost, because he's really the added cost of having moved them up to the deputy and raising the salary there. But this is going to be an option to do to speed up the process. I wanted to ask, though, if we could just take through the differences. Teresa, could you talk to the difference between the part-time and less than full-time in terms of the rights we have as an employer?
They basically have all the same rights as a full-time.
All the same rights as a full-time employee. And is a part-time have the same rights as a full-time employee? No, but less than full-time does. Okay. So could you describe the major difference? Like, would we be able to say, let's say,
By the contract, they get the benefits, they get
if the volume drops of applications on a less than full-time, can we,
Defund the position.
can we just, well, we could always just defund the position. Can we just say, no, thank you?
on the position with the regular guys, but they have all the same rights and privileges.
Okay. But a part-time, we could say, thanks for coming in, we don't need you next month. Okay. Jane, can you maybe hop up to the mic and we can just talk this through just for a moment? Because if we're not able to come to agreement now, we'll have to bump it to the next meeting when we have the full 5. But I want to make sure we're comfortable. So you would put out a list for the less than full-time position. You have a potential person that is interested in the position.
That's correct. We went
Okay.
off an active list from a test that was given a couple of years back.
Right.
Donna from Personnel canvassed that list. There was 4 residents that were on the list still that were available. 3 of them responded that they were interested. Donna and I conducted interviews, and we had all 3 interested. One seemed to fit, make the best fit. So we do have a selection ready to go at the less than full-time.
And that's no more than 28 hours for less than full-time, no more than 17 hours for part-time, right? Is that how it works?
Correct.
Do you know if that person would, well, first of all, we have the budget season coming up, obviously, where we'd be able to authorize an additional position period. Would he or she be interested in the part-time version if it was at 17 hours? Is that something they'd still be, you'd spoken to them about it?
Yes, they would not be interested. All 3 applicants would not have been interested in that because it requires them to give up work that they already do in the town of Orangetown because they can't be inspectors on their
Inspect and
own
also-
projects. Exactly. So they're giving up a business, businesses that they've already built in order to do this. I did put it as a request in the 2019 budget
Right.
as a full-time position, and hoping that it does become a full-time position at some point.
Do we need it to be a full-time position? Or isn't there a full-time position now, being that Rick moved up?
Well, what happened is the positions were always there, but they were taking out of the last year's budget. So last week, when I was asked, were they funded? They weren't funded. The positions existed, the positions were never removed, but they weren't in the budget for 2018.
Authorized but not funded.
Correct. So Mr. Oliver was in the building inspector's position. The deputy building inspector position was there. He moved up to that position and was given the raise to take on that position, which is more responsibility.
Right, and we never did anything with the position he left, correct?
No.
Correct. He just moved on the piece of paper.
So we moved his salary expense to the deputy, and then we added to his salary expense. We gave him a raise, obviously, for
Correct.
being the second in charge. But so that this is an additional now at this point.
And if we start with the less than full-time, and we can decide in the budget whether we need somebody full-time.
Right. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, being in construction, it's the busiest time, like I said last time, since Reagan was in office. Things are just
Right.
booming.
Yeah.
And it takes too long to get building permits passed in Orangetown, so if this alleviates that and helps the residents, I think it's well worth it.
And the other things he could also be used for, free up
Code
time for code enforcement for the
Code
other building
enforcement.
inspectors. Yeah, I know your intent is to have this person mostly focus on the initial processing, but it would free up time for the other guys too.
Right. As a entry-level building inspector, even though the applicant has a lot of construction experience, he has to learn the paperwork end of it and the processing end of it from the town side. So he would be actually at the desk, the counter most of the time, when he first starts. And the idea is to have him help the applicants when they're there with their applications, because one of the things we're finding is, I can't figure out the percentages, but it's more than probably 75%, the applications are not done properly. So that requires a lot of time on our building inspectors going back and forth to try to get the information correct in order to even begin the actual code review. So having him at the forefront, he knows how to read plans, he understands the codes, being in construction, he'll be able to review those. A clerk position doesn't have that skill, and it's actually not in their job description. So, as a building inspector, he would be trained to do those things that are more technical.
Okay. So are you, I'm okay with the, especially given the volume, your permit fees are up what over last year? If you could just say it again for everyone. I think I remember off the top of my head, but it was like
684,000,
not counting the $1 million.
not counting the 1.2. As of the end of June, we were 1.8 million above all of last year in revenue.
Okay. If you're good with it, I'm good with it.
I'm good with it. I mean, that right there tells you. the
Yeah, that
amount.
tells you what the amount of volume that's gone up and the fact that it's all offset anyway, but it wasn't budgeted for, but we have unbudgeted for revenues that cover it. It's a revenue producing position.
And I did demonstrate in the budget that the last 3 years, the revenue has continued to increase, and the department has always come in under the revenue that was earned. So we're doing okay with that respect. And our hope is to, especially the smaller applications that are coming in from the homeowners that should be relatively simple, that initial contact with the building inspector will allow them to get through faster and hopefully not hold them up for 3 weeks.
Right.
So if we can get those type of simple applications down to a week's time, then I think that's a bonus.
Okay. All right, so what is the name of the person we're appointing? Because it's a blank space on the agenda right now.
Right, it's Dominic Miano from Orangeburg.
Can you spell that for Joe? Dominic, is it?
Dominic with a C,
The C, that's what I was wondering.
Miano.
Okay. And do we need Rob to authorize the salary and stuff for this? Because it wasn't, no, this was funded already, right? So it just automatically becomes less than, okay.
Right, and it does say part-time.
It does say part-time, oh, yeah, so less than full-time in the text. To the headline, it says full-time, it's less than full-time, it's less than full-time in the text of the resolution. Thank you. All right, is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Council Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you, Jen.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, resolution to approve land assistance for Colonial Day in Tapan on September 29th, which is a great event. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Slide the City, Pearl River, they're going to be reimbursing us for certain costs, which I can give the number for, which is blank right now. If we could change the times from to be held in downtown Pearl River. So the times will say the times that we're assisting them for, but the actual event time is 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. But we're going to be assisting them from 4:30 a.m. until 8 p.m. or call it 8:30 p.m. And then the cost, the hosting company, will be $15,781 for labor and overtime performed by highway and police department employees. Labor, equipment, and overtime. Okay, is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second. Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Do we have to jump to a public hearing?
We still have
That clock
7
is,
minutes.
fast.
Right.
Oh, that clock, yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah,
at
that
the
clock's
clock.
fast, yeah.
Okay.
What else here?
Resolution to...
Oh, yeah, okay. Land assistance for the bagpipe and drums competition on Saturday, August 1st at the GAA Field. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second for Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Resolution to approve Michael Donahue to attend the 26th Annual Relief Conference, July 26th to 28th. Is there a motion? Councilman Vital.
Either
I
way.
said both your
Either
names
way.
combined that time.
That's
Councilman
fine.
Valentine, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution to approve land assistance for Pearl River Day on October 6th, also a great event. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari this time, Councilman Valentine with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to lend assistance for the car show in Pearl River, September 15th and September 16th, rain date 22nd, 23rd. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second. Councilman Batari.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Resolution to approve land assistance for Pearl River School District to use some dumpsters. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari with the motion, Councilman Valentine with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Lend assistance for the Showmobile for the Nye Chamber of Commerce's Halloween Parade, another awesome event, on the 27th of October. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Another one to lend assistance to Pearl River Day and the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce, this time for the Showmobile. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Lend assistance for Dominion College's 2018 Fire in the Sky event, which I'm sure will be awesome. I've never attended, but September 22nd. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Lend assistance for the Village of Nyack's Great Get-Together, Saturday, September 15th, for Porta-Johns. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Lend assistance for the 2018 Rockland County Volunteer Firefighters Parade, hosted this year in Piermont. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Batari. That's on September 8th, Saturday, September 8th. And then resolution to accept donation of a memorial park bench along the Blauvelt section of the rail trail honoring Kathleen and Kevin Whelan. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Resolution to extend agreement for Johnson Controls for their HVAC and mechanical services under the same terms and conditions as prior. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Matari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then final one, there's two more we're going to do, but we'll only get to the one before we have our hearings. Resolution to accept resignation and retirement for employees for the 2018 retirement incentive. I'm going to go through them. They deserve some recognition. They've been with us for a very long time, and we're sad to see them all go. I know several personally. We have Pete Lovett, an MEO2 in DME. Guy DiVincenzo, our Deputy Commissioner of DME. Rosemary Fenario, who will now have to hang out with Frank at home. And if you're watching at home, Frank, I'm just messing with you. And then Veronica Cummings, our most recent CSCA president, who's right there.
Actually, right there.
Not leaving.
She tells me she's leaving, but she was telling me that when I first got here. So, William Bodenstab, a welder and body repair from our highway department. Lauro Antonucci of the Highway MEO2. Judith Smith, Parks and Recreation clerk typist. Bob Yazarski, the guy who supervised a lot of the work we've done to the town hall and all sorts of things, a very great guy, is leaving us. He's our maintenance mechanic too for building maintenance. Joanne Ogilvy, account clerk typist in Parks and Rec. Bob Murphy, automotive mechanic in DME. And B. Troy, our receptionist in my office, who is a lovely, lovely lady, is retiring. That's, we offer the incentive, will give us a lot more flexibility in the budgeting process, but we're sad to see them go. So I move that we accept their resignation. Is there a second?
Yes.
Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Moving on to, do we have time for the audit with 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Better off being late than early
Better off being late than early, that's true.
on this.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, tonight's audit consists of 6 warrants for a total of $2.1 million. The first warrant had 194 vouchers for $155,000 and was for Medicare reimbursements. The second warrant had 1 voucher for $1,300, was for a sewer program. The third warrant had 1 voucher for $1,200, was for a Parks Youth program. The fourth warrant had 59 vouchers for $343,000 and was for utilities. The fifth warrant had 1 voucher for $2,200 and was for highway oil purchases. The sixth warrant had 347 vouchers for $1.6 million. Items of interest: number 1, ADS Environmental Services, $42,000 for sewer work, that's bonded money. Number 2, Brooker Engineering, $20,000 for Home for Heroes work, that's grant money. Number 3, Candle, $17,000 for substance abuse prevention program. Number 5, Capasso, $48,000 for recycling. Number 6, CSEA Employee Benefit Fund, $62,000 for dental benefits. Number 9, Fleet Pump, $35,000 for replacement sewer pump. Number 12, Global Montello, $22,000 for fuel. Number 16, Department of Civil Service, $762,000 for CSEA healthcare. Number 17, Optimum Controls, $97,000 for the telemetry upgrade and sewer. Number 20, Reed Systems, $31,000 for highway anti-icing equipment. Number 23, Sport Tech Construction, $40,000 for resurfacing of courts. Number 25, the comptroller, $33,000 for justice fines. And number 26, Telcon, $37,000 for highway materials. Any questions on the audit?
Good. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilor Batari, second by Councilor Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
So we only have 2 more to kill before we get to this hearing, so let's just knock them out. They're new business because we didn't have a chance to workshop them, so I'm going to just explain them. This was the one we talked about, but we didn't have an actual resolution to accept the hazard plan, so we're included in, what's the, FEMA's, regional plan and everything like that for flood mitigation. It's the same one that's been passed every year, just with the dates changed. Is there a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
And there is a Craft Beer Week is coming to Orangetown on Saturday, July 28th. It's the first year they've ever had Craft Beer Week, and we have a new brewery in town along with Defiant, which is Gentle Giant Brewery, and they are asking for some assistance from the Highway Department with tables, chairs around the. Sorry, are we doing land assistance? Yeah, land assistance, use of lighted barricades in the highway, parking spaces sectioned off, et cetera. Is there a motion on this one? Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, so that takes us back to, we can begin back at the beginning. Our first public hearing, which is on the performance standards. Let me see, it looks like no one signed in on any of them, so do we have a motion to open public hearing, or I guess reopen the public hearing on public performance standards? Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone here who did not sign in who would like to comment on the performance standards law that has been workshopped, and, well, not workshopped, has been, had hearings on since I came into office because it keeps getting changed? Anyone? Okay. So,
Do you want to talk, Andrew?
did you have some? Okay, sure. Whenever you're ready.
Thanks. So I'm looking at the language inside this. Has anything changed from the original draft? So that's one of my questions. I don't know if you want to answer them after. Also, how is this different than what we currently have? And is there additional cost to the applicants with regards to this? Or is there any additional cost from passing of this? So basically, those are the main issues that I'd like to hear. I've seen parts of this, and I'd like for everyone to understand the process of what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the passage of this new text, and why it's needed. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just hit pause there because we've heard this so much, I didn't summarize it. We should probably explain that. That's a fair thing, right?
Yeah.
So basically, from the changes from the original, I'm going to let Rob hit that when I hit, but we're the other two first. Changes from current, essentially, our odor and particulate matter code is woefully outdated. It was written, I think, in the 1950s with terminology that isn't even used anymore. There was a scale on there to measure stuff that isn't even used at all. That has to be looked up and doesn't exist, apparently. There's no way to practically hold companies or anyone really to these performance standards and to the rules associated with nuisance odors with the way it's currently written. What we did was started off before I took office. The guys here did a great job. They brought in some consultants. They're experts in this, a law firm, an environmental consultant, and brought up a section that is more in line with modern technology, with modern standards. It includes things like olfactometers, which will, with proper training, allow our code enforcement officers to actually scientifically measure the level of smell in an area so that it's not a subjective standard. The courts hate subjective standards. They hate when it's, this person thinks it's too loud, this person thinks it smells too bad. They want to know what's the level that's being held to. That's what this kind of allows us to do in short. The cost, there's no added cost to anyone in this. The only cost would be having the olfactometers, which are not very expensive items at all. They're personally held. I'm going to ask Rob to just sort of summarize the changes that we've gotten to this point, if you could, Rob.
Sure. Well, as you know, Dennis Michaels did much of the work on, I shouldn't say much, all of the work on this. We did have outside consultants certainly help. As the supervisor indicated, it's mostly to make it more objective standards as opposed to subjective. I think, Chris, you hit on, with respect to odors, it will be something that can be measured as opposed to just asking somebody if it's objectionable. In particular, users, commercial users, when they go for performance standards to the Zoning Board of Appeals, will certainly have, there's more information for now the Zoning Board of Appeals to measure when they come before the boards, and they will have reports that will have to be submitted. So in that respect, for commercial users, it will be a little more of a, I hate to say burden, but it will be a bit of a burden on them to come to the town and make sure that they're in compliance. But the biggest thing, again, as the supervisor indicated, is really that it's more objective as opposed to subjective, which really, it made it difficult not only to enforce, but difficult for users and the public to understand exactly what was a violation and what was not. But there's mechanisms in here for hearings before the ZBA, and for really the building department to do what's necessary in order to enforce and again, make sure that the user and the public are aware of what's going on in terms of whether or not it's in fact a violation or an odor rises to the level of what would be a violation.
And just to which things have changed from the last edition from circulated? On the side sheets we have where we have the attached bills, there's one, or laws, I should say.
Right.
There's the current version that's just completely clean, and then you see one, it's, am I reading it right? If the italicized parts are the part that changed from the last edition we circulated.
Correct. There are many changes, and again, that was based upon the review of our outside consultants. Again, Dennis worked with those folks. Really, again, to make it more objective and easier to enforce.
And if you're reading through this, whether here at home, basically it's the underlines are new text from the original law, the strike-throughs are removed text from the original law, and anything in italics is the most recent changes that were made after the last right before the last public hearing that made us unable to vote on it because it was too substantial to not have circulated to the appropriate agencies. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to jump on for public comment? I'm sorry, for public comment for, public comment for this before we move on. Yes, Ronnie.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. Ronnie Cummings for the town of Orangetown for another couple more days. CSA president. I would like to know if, when you're done with your meeting, if we can go into executive session for a few minutes. I'd like to discuss something about an employee.
Sure, this technically would have been the last public comment, but we will.
Right, I just want to grab it before.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I should stay or not.
You can stay, we will if you need to.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you. Not technically this, but still important. Anyone who for this particular public hearing on the odors? Yes, Allison Sullivan. And you have it's 5 minutes for this if you want to use the whole time.
It's not going to take 5 minutes. I just want you to explain, so if this passes tonight, how long does it take to go into effect? And so when an odor complaint comes in, what happens now? How is it different than before?
Sure.
All right, so that's all.
Sure. So in terms of,
wait.
You have more?
Will someone actually physically go out and verify? Will someone come measure? I guess that's kind of what I wanted to know.
Okay. So in terms of effectiveness, legally, it's in effect like the
Well,
moment we pass.
what happens tomorrow, if it passes tomorrow, it is sent to the Secretary of State. Once it's filed with the Secretary of State, it's an effective law. Typically, it's about 3 or 4 days to get filed. We don't really get notice of it for a couple of weeks, but if we sent it out tomorrow, you would say probably by Monday it would be effective, but again, we won't be notified of that. We call them to ask, but it could be as soon as, let's say, next Monday, but sometime next week. In terms of enforcement, Jane, I don't know if you're.
I'll bring you up,
wanna
Jane,
jump
after,
up
once we're sure that no one else has any comment to address what the next steps are in terms of the changes of things. But is there anyone else who has a comment for this public hearing? Okay, so I'm going to move that we close the public hearing on performance standards. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Jane, could you just step up real quick and just sort of describe what you're going to be able to do now that this will have been passed? Because you can do it better than I do, I think, some degree. If you can't, then,
In all fairness, I can at this point. We've
You
been
got, sure.
working so diligently with the old one,
yeah.
and with
The
regards to
biggest thing,
Aloof,
will you have do we have the olfactometers available?
we do not have
We
them
don't have those
available
yet,
as
so
of yet.
That's the first step that'll have to occur then, is the training.
Correct.
Okay, purchasing
I don't
training.
believe anybody wants to move forward with purchasing them until we
We knew we
worked
had
out
them. Yeah.
all of the facts. Again, the major edits and implementation went back before I started in October, and they were well far along at that point.
Right.
What it will give us is real standards to refer to. As you mentioned earlier, the standards that are in our current code are from an engineering principle book from 1955.
Yeah.
Which took me about 2 weeks to find. So, and it's really just nothing we measure at this point. So it has more modern technology in the code that will allow us to make better determinations, and the olfactometer will help. And yes, we will have to be trained in that, so that we understand how it works and what the readings mean.
Practically speaking, do you think you'd be able to have something for us for the workshop in the first week of August for like purchase of them and maybe even authorizing classes? We would be able to get
I
that
can
on the
definitely
agenda.
work towards that.
That way we can start the ball rolling. I know
Absolutely.
we can't. It's not an immediate thing, but once we pass the law, we can at least have the tools at our disposal. Then.
Correct. I can do the research on that.
Okay, great. And then that doesn't. What it won't change though right now is because the outlay of where code enforcers are available is timing of when they can necessarily get over. We still have to allocate when they're on shift versus responding to complaints at certain times a day and analyze patterns for that because they can't.
That's correct.
It's not. We don't have an authorized position for an on-call person at 2 a.m. or something like that. It was-
Right, we do not at this
Right.
point. And I believe it is outlined in the new standard that there has to be a certain amount of complaints within a certain time frame to make it justifiable to do the analysis.
Right.
And we didn't have that before. So now
No.
we do have a
Now we have
definite
the system
line
that
as to
reports
when
that.
we act. Correct.
Yeah. So that we know when to act, we know when we can authorize someone to go out, what they can measure when they get there. We just need to get the equipment and training to do it.
Correct.
And then consider the best way to deploy our resources when we have.
Correct, so we'd have to assign a number of inspectors to do it. Obviously, it can't just be one person because if that person's out. But I don't know that it'd be cost-effective to train all 7 inspectors.
Right, and we also have the public health engineer too, starting September 1st, so.
That's correct. And early on, that was my understanding that that engineer was going to overlap with the enforcement of that with our
Yes.
department, coming from the engineering side. So
Right. Okay,
we'll work on
very
that
good.
together.
Thank you. Any questions for Jen? No. Okay. All right, so moving on to number 3, resolution to declare secret lead agency. Is there a motion? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor? Aye. And number 4, resolution to adopt the changes for performance standards. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor? Aye. Great. So that's done. So now we have another public hearing. This one is on the posted parade, street fair, special events routes. Is there a motion to open the public hearing on this one? Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Batari, all in favor? All right, just to summarize before we open the floor, if there is anyone, basically, we discovered that in our town code, the police aren't actually really allowed to tow your car if you park along the route at the St. Patrick's Day Parade without any sort of, there's no legal authorization to do it. So we have to have that power in case someone decides to disrupt St. Patrick's Day Parade or any of other events if they avoid the no parking signs. So it just says specifically during parades, street fairs, or special events routes, they can be towed. Is there anyone here for public comment on this law? Mr. Wiley, yeah.
So I see in quotes, it says towing of vehicles, parade, street fair, special event routes. So I don't know, is it defined in this, what you're passing, or anywhere else in the code, what a special event route is? And where it would cover? I mean, because Tapan, they have different events also. There are different events all throughout the town. Would this also apply, and would the village have to be notified also because they have events also there, or do they already have their own law that applies? So, I mean, basically, the process, and while I understand the intent and the rationale, the implementation, I don't know if there's anyone from the police department that's here, but I think someone should be from the administrative to give their input to you as to how they will, and you probably know, Jerry, but how you go about the proper notification, posting, things of that nature, so that residents, excuse me?
Yeah.
In the law, which is in the backup.
Yeah, the backup's not on the table.
Okay, well,
So-
my apologies on that.
No, that's fine. I'm just going by what's here inside of this.
No problem.
But I am surprised that the police don't have representation here on this. Maybe you already had a conversation with them, but I think someone should have been here to answer any questions, because there are a multitude of issues, and how do you define special events? So, like, if I want to set up a protest, is that considered a special event? Could then I make an application to have, people have their cars removed from an area in which I want to set up a protest? I mean, unless it's actually defined what a special event is, anything could be a special event. So that's my concern. It's very broad, and how are you going to discriminate when it's that broad as to an application that's made that may not be one that the board really wants made, for whatever reasons. So if this allows for anyone to go and file a process to have, say, okay, this is a special event, this is a route, I want these vehicles towed, I just think that we need to define what that is. And maybe it is in the law and I didn't see it specifically, but in the future, and I don't know if it's required, it should be probably in the actual agenda also, the definition.
So if you want me to address those things?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Was that the sum total of what you were kind of getting at?
That's fine.
Great.
Thank you.
So the law, there should be a separate stack of documents out there with the attached laws, because there's an issue with making it appear clearly in the agenda, so we put it as a separate reference. The reason why it's not defined is because that part of the law isn't changing. There's already a law that deals with how you define a posted parade route or street fair. There's a permitting process. There's an ability for us to put up signs saying a posted street route is here, you shouldn't park here. That's all unchanged in the law. The only thing that changes is that after a permit has been approved by the town board, and after the police have posted the signs and said you can't park here because this approved event by the town board, which we have to vote on, it's not like you just get to show up and say I'm having a parade today, then there's no legal authority for the police to then enforce upon the signs that they already are allowed to post for the permits we are already allowed to issue. So there's a reason. The reason why it's not defined is simply because it's not changing in the law. There's already a well-established boxed process. You can't just say I'm having a protest today, and I don't want people parking here, and then we start telling them. That's just not being changed. The only change is that if you park on Central Avenue on this Sunday march after St. Patrick's Day, we can actually legally tow you as opposed to tow you and hope you don't yell at us, which is a big difference. Anyone else for public comment on this law? Okay.
Just to
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
clarify quickly, just to clarify, this was workshopped and at a police
Yes.
commission meeting when we did have the police available, and we all did ask similar questions, Andrew, and received the similar
What I just
answers
said,
that
yeah.
Chris just
That's where I got that info from, was that.
Yeah,
Good. You know
Sergeant Ruggiero was in the back before. He must have been called inside, but there was a police representative here. It still has to be a 24-hour, I believe it's 24-hour time that's listed. In the case of the Pearl River Parade, there's no parking in downtown Pearl River, the business district, overnight anyway. So that would be posted 24 hours in advance. And if, actually, after you stay, Andrew, I'll give you a copy. This is in here. It explains the process for permitting and going on from there. So it really hasn't changed all that much in terms of, it's just going to allow, it's going to make it clear and it's going to allow them to tow. I mean, before that, they were in areas that were posted and they were given no parking tickets and towed. This will just make it clearer and a little more legal.
We keep running into this where we're discovering things in the code that were not exactly as we thought they were since Rob and I have started peeling the onion on this. So we're going to keep patching things as we find them. Seeing no further comment, unless I'm crazy, I don't see any further comment. I move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have a declaration for lead agency under SECRA. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second for Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8 is to adopt a resolution to adopt the local law regarding towing of vehicles. Is there a motion?
Sure.
Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. 2 down. Next, we have the resolution to open and our continuation of the public hearing related to the point at Lake Tapan. Is there a motion to open the public hearing or continue?
I'll make a motion.
Councilman Valentine, second Councilman Batari, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Is there anything from the applicant before we move to the public? You good, or? No, please, here he goes.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and Town Board. At the last hearing, we had the public hearing where the public put their input, and we have presented the presentation. It was held over because there seemed to have been a problem with the time frame for the seeker approval. The long form was submitted, the long form was circulated. We've worked with the town attorney. We believe we've solved all of the seeker problems right now, and if the board has any kind of questions, I have my engineer here with me. We'll be glad to answer your questions.
Any questions for the applicant right now? We did do the hearing on it already. No? Good. Okay, and Rob, just since, well, he's up here, we're good to go on all county planning and circulation issues that we could vote tonight, assuming that there's not some sort of crazy bomb dropped on us that we don't want to.
Right. The county planning did submit their comments. I actually spoke to Arlene Miller from the county planning. Her one suggestion was, and we've discussed this, was this area previously has a PAC project, and it's part of the resolution. She was discussing, the town comprehensive plan, which I think does recognize planned unit developments possibility for this area, which really a PAC zone is really a planned unit development, so in that respect, it's consistent with it. So there's no need for an override. I discussed that with her. They actually think that this is a good use for this property. There were some other issues with the full EAF that Jane and I discussed today and worked out with the engineer, Mr. Villarreal. Is that how we say it? So those things were all addressed. The full EAF is submitted, it was analyzed, and the proposed neg deck has been prepared. So, okay. To answer your, the short answer to your question is yes, it's okay to vote on it tonight.
Okay to vote on it. So, and just for anyone who's not fully read in on this, who's just tuned in for the first time, or showed up for the first time, this is phase 2 of the apartments, senior apartments that are over on Orangeburg Road. Or is it Veterans by then?
Veterans Memorial.
It becomes Veterans by then.
Yes.
It's phase 2. It's between that and the Blue Hill Plaza vicinity. And it's how many units again?
It's 104 units.
For 1 and 2 bedroom units.
That's correct.
Okay. And they're rentals.
They are rentals.
Senior rentals.
Senior
55
rentals.
and up rentals.
Right.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. And we're going to move on to, I think, the public, if there's anyone here for public comment.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
You want to just mention about that issue we discussed today with respect to this particular piece and what it was previously and now?
Well, there was a little confusion because the tax maps were different. When the first project came through, it was based on a tax map which existed in the year 2004, and subsequent to that, the tax maps were changed, so there was a little confusion as what the actual lot was. However, the legal connections and the meets and bounds description are proper, and actually right now they are proper in terms of the adjustment for the new tax map.
And just, it's the former, what was called the Hunter Douglas property. That was the plan that was to go there, but they, that
Hunter Douglas is not part of this. That was taken out of the
right. But that was in the original resolutions back in 2005.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. All right. Folks from the public, is there anyone? No one signed in, but you can. You just come up. You'd have to come up to do it. I'm sorry. It's just the way these things work. It basically, you come up to the podium and then you ask or say whatever you want, basically.
Okay, I'm Joan Donovan. I live in the club at Pearl River.
Sure.
I just wanted to know, they refer to this as senior housing. Mm-hmm. Senior housing usually refers to 65 and above. Is this the different complement of housing than the club?
No.
Same exact thing.
55 and over.
Under the town code, it's 55 and up. You might think in concept it's 65 because most things are 65.
Oh, well,
We are saying we use 55 under town code. For senior housing, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
It's not 65. Okay, I'm just going to, Barbara, you had your hand up first, so I'm just going to let her go. If you could, because, okay. Go ahead, Barbara, you're up, yeah. Sorry, you had your hand up first, so I don't want to make you wait. And just, again, when you get up here, for those of you who haven't been through this, just read your name into the record, where you're from, and then go ahead. You have up to 5 minutes to go. Don't feel like you have to use the whole time or stop short.
I'm Barbara Dello, and I'm from Blauvelt. And I want to again express my concern about more development in the area of Orangeburg Road and Veterans Memorial Parkway. Incrementally, we're seeing more open space land be developed. And I find it difficult to believe that that wouldn't have an impact on traffic. Perhaps, I mean, seniors aren't too noisy, but the quality of life of the residents of Orangetown. So I wanted to know, is the town board still committed to protecting the residents from traffic that comes with development? And has the Traffic Advisory Board looked at potential traffic problems in the Orangeburg Veterans Memorial area? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, sure, please. You could step up. Maybe you want to, in case yes, it's the keypad, you want to sit at this table up here so you don't have to make the trip every time. It's kind of a weird setup here.
In the petition, we did a full traffic study by a consulting engineer. Remember, this property is zoned for commercial use. The amount of cars which would be permitted as a matter of right for commercial use is about 200% more than what we generated from the seniors, and the seniors would be using the exit and entrances way off times than would be in a building. So therefore, the traffic engineers, of which you have the report, shows that this has minimal effect. And the fact is that the entrance to it is at a traffic light, so traffic-wise, this has really been handled properly. And second of all, your code, if you look at your code carefully, they've left a lot of room for open space, and therefore the development factor is around 0.4. So there will be 60% of the area will still be open space. And trees will be left and things of that sort. There'll be good buffers, and this really is a better zone than if all the trees came down and you put up a high-rise building.
Great. And just for the route for the driveway is basically into the driveway for Blue Hill.
Right at
and
the
then
traffic
you'll use that light there, and there won't be another curb cut.
There will not be another curb cut.
Okay, thank you. And yes, ma'am, you had your next comment. Just again, name for the record, and then where you're from.
Thank you. I'm Anita Alpucci, and I live at the club. I have two questions. One, I don't know how your traffic study was done, but have you ever tried to leave the club between 8 and 8:45? You cannot get out. I waited 10 minutes to get out because the car's coming from New Jersey and the other car's going to Jersey. Just horrendous. And I wonder what's going to happen with the point there, because that's going to be double the cars that we have now. The other question I have is to Mr. Young. Is the point going to be completely separate from the club? The facilities, everything. Nobody is going to come and use either one.
Okay. Is that all you have? Because I don't want you to
Yeah,
get
that's
down if you're
all.
not done.
Thank
Okay. Yeah, if you could please speak to those.
Okay. As for question number one, this traffic is nowhere near the traffic of Club Number One. This traffic, as I said before, comes out at an existing traffic light at the large Blue Hill building. As for number two, this project is completely 100% independent of the first project. They have their own recreation center, they have their own swimming pool, they have their own indoor facilities. In no way will the two be affected in any way.
So you can't use, if you move into the point or phase two, whatever you're calling it, you can't use the gym at the other one.
You cannot. The two may want to get together for joint,
Well, yeah, if you want,
something like that.
If
But
you
they
have
are
friends and you bring,
completely,
I don't know what the policy is.
they're completely independent.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else who had comment on this public hearing? Yes, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm freaking
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So a couple issues on the EAF. Again, that's not provided at the table. I have concerns if this is going to pass tonight with it only being 3 board members. I know there's a determination that Mr. Magrino made saying that he doesn't believe an override is necessary on one of the conditions, but I haven't seen the actual determination from the county. So if the county made a specific determination with regard to this, it's been the past practice that you override it, whether or not it's necessary or not, or whether or not the attorney, for prudent perspective, that you would have at least 4 members to override that determination, and that's done in the planning board and other boards. So
there was no. First of all, to the question you bring up, what's out there, we don't print out the giant stack, but for everyone out, because it's this thick and we like trees, but it's all available publicly and online, and some of the stuff's out there. But to your question about override, it's not a matter of opinion. There's nothing to override in what the county planning board said on the opinion of the county planning board, speaking to them.
With due respect, what's in writing and what's done in a verbal conversation are 2 separate entities. If he's got something in writing that there was a concern from that, I'm just saying you can pass at your own risk. It's fine. It's not
a risk thing. I'm just trying to explain to you, Andrew, is that you're asking the question. I'm telling you there is nothing to override from the county planning in writing, period.
Well, I don't know that. I'm going based upon what Mr. Magrino said.
Town attorney does, though.
I understand that, but he said there was a communication and then there was a follow-up. And my concern is also, in addition to that, an EAF or something happened today or this morning about EAF. What was circulated to the planning department and all the other departments did not include anything that happened today. So therefore, that's a problem. You may not see it as a problem, but I know it's a problem because it was always a problem when I made an application in the town, that if there was not, if there was documentation or termination or something was changed and it was not circulated to everyone to have their input on it, you passing this can risk it, put it in peril. Now, it may not be a problem. You know, the county may not decide to do something about it. No other party may decide to file an Article 78. But, you know, there was 5 board members here, and I think for something of this size, all 5 board members should weigh in and make a determination. I know Mr. Divany raised concerns at the last board meeting about certain fees that may have not been negotiated as of now with regards to recreation contributions. But there are a number of issues, and I believe something like this, where you're looking at over 100 potential units, I don't understand why there's a rush other than to accommodate the applicant to make a determination. Because 30 days or the next board meeting is not going to make a difference. And some of the issues I'm bringing up, you may not say are valid or whatever, but my opinion, they are valid. When you have an applicant who makes an EAF, it's environmental review, it's a form. So if that's the practice that's going to go forward, then every applicant in the town of Orangetown should be obliged and be able to get that same opportunity. So when I make an application, I should be able on the day of, if I make an application on my property in Spark Hill, I should be able to come to the town board on the day of or the day before, meet with Ms. Magrino, and work out any issues without it being circulated to all the other towns.
I'm going to hit pause on your time because it's just, I think you're a little confused by the way Rob described it. I'm going to explain. The EAF was properly circulated for the 30 days. We had a public hearing on this already and discussed everything in public hearing already. This is not like Mr. Brenner showed up today with an EAF form and Rob said, you're cool. Let me finish. To correct factually, because we're all entitled to our own opinions, we're not entitled to our own facts. The EAF was circulated. It was processed by today. If we change things significantly, we then have to recirculate it. That's the way the law works. But it's not like this environmental assessment form was just done and we're kind of going on the seat of our pants here. It's all been properly, legally circulated. There are nothing to override from county planning. There is no circulation issues. That's why we're eligible to be able to vote at this, the second or third. I think it's the second hearing that we've had on this. So just continue. You have another minute and a half if you'd like.
Thank you. And I would argue against what your position is because he had a conversation today on a determination on the EAF, okay? That was not conclusive given to the other party to weigh in on. Now, I don't know the specifics. That's not been publicly talked about what the difference is, whether or not it is substantiated or not. In addition to that, inside on the application, on the actual thing, it says about retail uses also. If you look on the actual agenda. Now, I made the suggestion, but I don't believe that's allowable in the PAC zone. But I do see something about retail, community, shopping uses, and active adult or senior housing. And that's on page 7 of this agenda, 7 of 29. On the bottom, it says, whereas town board acting in capacity lead agency environmental review, having carefully considered all potential environmental impacts that might result from proposed action, has concluded that there is no significant environmental impacts or effects caused on occasion change the zoning classification of subject parcel eventual improvement with a combination of retail community, retail/community, shopping uses, active adult, and senior housing. Now, my understanding, unless something's changed, that's not allowable in the PAC zone. So how did that language come in? If it is part of the PAC zone, that's fine, but I've read the PAC zone multiple times, and I don't recall seeing that. So if you're going to pass this tonight, you might want to amend that. And I would like clarification on the EF.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can clarify a couple things.
I'll have Rob respond.
Thanks. In terms of that, first, retail and community shopping is permitted in a PAC zone. There is no proposal for retail or community shopping uses in this one. So yes, thank you, Andrew. We will eliminate those couple of words from there.
But it's something in the zone. That's why the language is there.
Right,
it's not like it was pulled out of someone's other ordinance.
Right. It is permitted, but is not planned for this project. In terms of the full EAF, just since you brought it up, I'll explain. The applicant prepared a full environmental assessment form. They prepare the Part 1. Then the lead agency, based upon the information supplied by the applicant, prepares the Part 2, and if appropriate, a negative declaration. What happened, that was circulated. It was the town's intention to be the lead agency. They notified, and Andrew knows I've been doing this with the planning board for many years. It was circulated to other interested agencies. They all deferred to this board to be the lead agency. So it's up to this board to make a determination whether a negative declaration should issue. That determination, the board's assisted certainly by Ms. Slavin. I was in contact with Ms. Slavin, and again, in reviewing the applicant's submissions and our review of it, the Part 2, again, the applicant also submitted a proposal for Part 2, which was reviewed by us. The Part 3 with the negative declaration was prepared. So that's really what's taking place tonight, is the determination of a negative declaration based upon what was submitted, what was circulated. All of the other interested agencies, mainly being the town planning board and county planning, received that full EAF. And now it is the town's responsibility to complete the EAF, which has been done, and that's what I was referring to.
So that our part is done and ready to be voted on, not that we're everything is circulated, and we got word today that we are 100% complete on circulation and everything, essentially what it boils down to.
Right. And in terms of, I mentioned the override again. My inclination, as Andrew indicated, is typically to err on the side of caution if sometimes county planning blatantly says something that if either the board, whether it be the planning board or the town board, either adopts their recommendation. If they decide not to adopt that recommendation, it's required to be overridden by a supermajority. The one I was talking about today, that the county planning brought up, had to do with reviewing other parcels in that area. And the board, as part of its review here, has looked at the other parcels, one of which is the existing PAC zone that was already passed. There's some other parcels nearby, and make a determination whether or not those should also be changed to PAC at this time. So again, the proposed resolution acknowledges that and is determining not to make those PAC at this time. If an applicant comes in, the board will evaluate it at that time. The reason I contacted county planning, and I can say, was to clarify that that's what county planning was referring to in their number 1. And again, Arlene Miller, who's the author of the letter, said yes. And she said that provided the board is doing what I just said, evaluating it, they're not indicating that it needs to be overridden if the other parcels are not rezoned PAC tonight, so that's why I mentioned it.
The wording of it is that we need to evaluate the other parcels. We are doing that, so we're complying with the county planning's recommendation to the letter. We're not overriding anything, essentially. We're just choosing not to rezone them because why? We don't feel like it, right? I mean, but we're complying with the recommendations. Jane, you want to go?
I just want to add that when the applicant first prepared the package and submitted it, they did submit the short form EAF, which we reviewed and rejected and asked for the long form. The long form came in, we reviewed, had comments, they revised, and then it went out for circulation. So
Right.
it has gone through multiple reviews, both by my department and with the town attorney's office, as well as the county. So it's been a very thorough review.
Right, and this was heard in hearing on June and was heard in a presentation format prior to that, a month prior to that. So we're not,
At least 3 times.
yeah,
Correct.
okay. Is there anyone for public, for this, the hearing, public hearing on this subject that would like to offer their comments and thoughts or questions for the applicant? Okay.
Make a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close the public hearing by Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So to the thing, the one thing Andrew brought up, which was something that Councilman Divany had mentioned, was the previous development that they did had a contribution to our parks fund. What it came to, we went back and looked it up, it came to $1,562.50 per unit, which for this phase would equal to $162,500 even. So is the applicant prepared to make such a contribution to our parks fund proportionally? They are. Okay. So we're going to, now Rob, where should we add that? I don't think it's in there.
That's on 16 of 29.
It's in there already?
Yeah.
Do we have the dollar figure in there already?
It would be 162.5.
All right, it is blank, sorry. $162,500 in the blank space on page 16.
Right, and just so we're clear for the record, ultimately, it'll be the planning board that sets that. That's part of their review, but again, as part of the zone change, the town board can certainly weigh in, and it indicates that it's 162.5, provided the town, unless the town planning board finds that it's insufficient.
So the planning board has the final word on
that it exceeds
that.
the amount that otherwise would have been due and owing under the town land use regulations. So the planning board does ultimately have jurisdiction over
This is a recommendation that it be that much and that they've offered to do it, essentially, is what we're saying, right, Rob?
Yes.
Okay. So 162.5, so we've addressed that. So do we want to go ahead and we've closed it? Do we want to do the secret declaration?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second from Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then.
That was
that's
number
secret.
11.
That's 11, and now we're on 12, the actual resolution. Did we need we don't need roll calls on secret, we need it on the resolution though, right?
No, well, we typically do it if there's an override.
If there's an override, okay, which there's not. Okay, but do you guys want to offer your thoughts on it before we vote? Or do you just want to vote? It's up to you. Okay, great. So is there a motion on number 12 for the resolution to adopt the change and implement the PAC zone? Councilman Valentine, second from Councilman Batari. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So that is our last public hearing, and that is therefore our last order of business, except the request by our outgoing union head to go into executive session. Yes, we have an adjournment in memory of Sandy Lent, the brother of our recently departed town clerk, Charlotte Madigan, who just passed. So I move that we adjourn move that we enter executive session and immediately thereafter adjourn in memory of Sandy Lent of Pearl River. Is there a second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you all very much for coming.
Just for the record, the executive session is for personnel matters.
For personnel matters, sorry.
Thank you.
Specific personnel matters.